Yes, that's the reality of it. And this is the centre speaking about service charge issues, something that we reported on. But how did the concept of separate service charges emerge, and what were the points that were working for it and against it? How did it become a practice in restaurants in the first place? And why did it take the centre to overturn that through the new guidelines? Let's understand this. Let's break it up and get in Gurbaxish Singh Kohli, the Vice President of FHRAI, the Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Associations of India. And he's joining us on the show. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Kohli. I understand that, yes, in your opinion, service charges at a restaurant, when it is mentioned on the menu, involves that implied consent of the consumer to pay the service charge. Now, how do you find that opinion getting challenged under the new guidelines that have been issued?
Well, I think this is a very, very debated and a very, very misunderstood concept. Most of what is said now, I do not think it is very well even understood. So, firstly, let's see what is a service charge. Let me inform you that a service charge is not something new. It's not a new concept. It's been there since almost the 1950s. Having said that, all over the world, if you travel all over the world, it is a very well accepted norm. What is a service charge? It's a charge collected by an establishment, and it is clearly mentioned in the menu along with the percentage at which it will be charged, and the guest is aware because it's prominently mentioned. Most it's very disheartening that the hospitality industry is constantly being singled out. See, we've explained over and over again that there's nothing illegal in collecting a service charge. It is a charge collected for the benefit of the staff, which includes everyone from the waiter to the personnel working in the kitchen, to your dishwasher, to the person who sweeps the floor, who have served a consumer directly or indirectly. Besides, no hospitality establishment coerces a consumer to pay for a charge if they do not want to do so. That's also wrongly mentioned as if the consumers are being forced to pay. I mean, when is the last time you went to a restaurant and you were forced to pay a service charge? There's no force. I
But
mean,
Mr. Kohli, the argument is that for the longest time, restaurants never made it clear that it is an optional charge. The
of course
fact
it
that
is.
it is not mandatory was never communicated.
It was always communicated, sir. I beg to differ. If you walk into a restaurant even today, who is charging you a service charge, and you say, "Please, I do not want to pay for whatever reason," reason is never asked from you. It was always discretionary. It was at the discretion of the consumer. It was never mandatory and never portrayed to be mandatory, and it was always removed whenever the guest wanted it to be removed.
But Mr. Kohli, there are instances where restaurants have put on their menus a levy of, say, 10% is going to be charged as a service charge. It has been clearly mentioned in menus of restaurants.
So isn't that informing you? I mean,
It
how
is
is that? How is
informing,
that
but it
wrong?
is not said that it's an option.
Well, it is an option. I mean, everybody
How
knows
does
it's an
one know
option.
that, Mr. Kohli? The restaurants made no effort to communicate
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I do not agree to your contention that the restaurants made no effort. See, we are all being singled out. Do
Sure,
you know? Do you know? Do you know? I'm just putting my point of view. Do
sure.
you know that service charge is corrected by so many sectors in various nomenclatures? It's called service fee. It's called a convenience fee. The last time you booked a ticket for a film or even to travel, haven't you paid a convenience fee? Do you know what that convenience fee is? Have you been told earlier before you book the ticket that there will be a convenience fee being charged, and the percentage you just pay it? And do you know where it goes? Here, at least you know where it goes. It's been informed to you
But
that this is the
yes,
percentage.
no, fair enough. But Mr. Kohli, if the argument is that service charge is used by restaurants and hotels to pay the staff, to pay its workers, and it's not
Yes,
actually a charge for the experience or for the food that is served to consumers,
yes,
it still begs the
absolutely.
question, Mr. Kohli, why a consumer should pay the staff separately when the understanding is when a consumer walks in for that basic service, when walking into the restaurant, that you are going to be served what you order. As a business, you pay your staff for conducting your business. The price that you offer your food and beverages for is is inclusive of serving it to the guests? Why should they pay
Yes.
for it separately? That's
Yes,
the
of
basic
course.
question here.
So that is why it is not mandatory, no? It is discretionary. If you would like, you do pay a tip, right? So if you would not like to pay a tip, nobody can force you to pay a tip. It is not mandatory. It is discretionary. It is at the discretion of the consumer. So likewise, the service charge is. You see what happens when. Let me just explain this in 2 minutes. When you pay a tip at a restaurant, it goes to just the service staff. It does not permeate down to the to the last and the first person. The service charge, in the other hand, it goes right from it travels to everybody from at all the echelons of the hierarchy of your staff. And meanwhile, I'm not advocating that service charge should be charged or should not be charged. As an
Right.
association, we can only we do not we do not advise our members to do or not to do a certain thing. And
But
there
Mr.
are so
Kohli,
many.
now that we're seeing the centre step in, calling the levying of service charges as an unfair trade practice, how do you think it's going to affect the hospitality business going ahead, both in financial terms and in operational terms? Can we expect some of those prices for what you put in your menu to go up because now this is a guideline that has been issued and is going to be monitored strictly?
See, everything does not relate to prices going up and down. It's very easily said. Why don't you increase your prices and include it? It's not that. India is a very price sensitive market, and one has to understand it. We are also an industry which has just come out of the pandemic being heavily hit. There has been no help from any government or any quarter. And we're not like, I'm not putting up a sympathy drive here. I'm just giving you an example. And you would agree to that because even the press was very vocal about that. Unfortunately, nothing happened. Here we are trying to keep the fires of our kitchen, the kitchen fires of our staff burning. We are ensuring that everybody gets something somehow in certain in a certain small. It is our little contribution to our staff, and absolutely. Having said it all, this is completely discretionary. If you do not want to pay it, if you for whatever reason, absolutely welcome to get it waived off. There is no question asked. I mean, this is one guideline which we've been following even before the guidelines were made. My contention is, why target only the hospitality industry? We've been asking the ministry to formulate a law, to make a law for this, so that every aspect is covered, every business is covered. At least then it'll also cover your convenience fee that you pay for booking a train ticket in the IRCTC. IRCTC also is charging you a convenience fee.
But
I'm
isn't
surprised. I'm
transparency a
surprised that
basic
nobody.
right, Mr. Kohli?
I'm
Isn't
surprised. I'm surprised.
transparency in the kind of charges that you do put out in any kind of bill, in any kind of invoice, transparency on that front, isn't that something that should be mandated, in your opinion?
Yes, absolutely. We are all for that. That is why we are requesting that a law be made. At least you know where our service charge is going. Do you know where the convenience fee on a booking platform is going? Do you know
So
what is
perhaps
being
we need more
charged?
transparency on that count too. And
Absolutely.
perhaps that should
So
happen over a period of time
absolutely.
when we start questioning and consumers step up the game, as it were. And perhaps you need a little bit of aid from the center. How do you think the center has been able to step into an issue which involved how a bill should be made? What was your reaction to it when you first heard the center mandating what it did and now turning it into a guideline?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I cannot comment on how the center would like or not like to operate, or where they would like to. They've got all the they have all the authority to do so. All I can do is I can explain my part of the story. And while we are saying, we are absolutely, I'm on the same page as you, that yes, everything needs to be transparent. But where is the transparency in the other platforms? I'm not crying out loud and complaining. I'm just saying that if there is a transparency, it should be across all boards. You should be able to know what you're paying for a service fee. If you're booking your ticket in IRCTC, you should be knowing if you're paying, what your charges are broken down into and go where. When you're paying an airport convenience fee, you should be knowing where your banking sector charges are. I mean, why only single us out? We're not complaining. We're saying, yes, very good. Just bring in a law so that it mandates everyone else. Is that so wrong to ask?
When you design the remuneration packages for your staff, out of curiosity, I want to understand from you, Mr. Kohli, how much of that was the percentage that you would give them by way of the collections from service charges? Was that part of the package? Is that how it worked? And how, if this is going to be now the new mandate, how is that going to get affected?
See, as you already know, the service charge is distributed completely to the staff. It is not it is not a matter of it is not a matter or a point of revenue for hotels and restaurants. It is distributed completely. Who's going to suffer out of this? The consumer? No, consumer is not going to suffer. The employee is going to suffer.
No,
In
but
fact, now
how
we
do
will have to see
consumers suffer? Sorry, Mr.
how
Kohli, I didn't get that
we
point. How do consumers suffer by not paying
I
service charge?
so exactly you did not hear me. I said, is the consumer going to suffer? No, it's the consumer is not suffering. The person, the your employee is going to suffer because his package will make a difference.
Mr. Kohli,
Now,
are you saying that the center has done this without keeping the needs of the consumers in mind? Because this, as I understand it, is a move to help consumers.
of course, it is. I I've been going on and on about it. I'm just saying, don't single us out. That is all I'm saying. Why single us out? It should be across the board. It's great that thing is coming. We have been requesting ourselves for a law to be made. Why just guidelines? Make a law, include everybody so that there is transparency, so that nobody gets hoodwinked under a convenience fee or XYZ fee. I mean, I'm sure you'll agree to that.
Mr. Kohli, before I let you go, I just need to know whether this is going to change the nature of the business that you conduct. Now, there is no going away from the fact that service charges cannot be levied at eateries, at restaurants, they cannot be levied. Now, I want to understand the future. How much of this is going to impact the way you conduct your business, and how are your books going to look different now that this is a reality?
See, these are guidelines. It's not an enactment first. So we will if we've just received it today. We will take a couple of days to go through it. It gives us the authority to read it, interpret it, and then represent to the department and the ministry again what our issues are. I think that is why it is yet only a guideline, because they would expect some kind of a reaction from us, and also some input from us, which we will definitely give them. And all said is, if there is a law coming and if it becomes law, absolutely, there's no other way but to enact the law and to follow it. Not a problem. We've always been a very, very law-abiding fraternity, and we will continue to do so.
Gurbaxish Singh Kohli, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on now what is put out in a guideline. It has come out that service charges, as far as restaurants and eateries are concerned, cannot be levied. It cannot be made mandatory. And tipping, of course, is at the sole discretion of consumers. Let's get further perspective on this from P.C. Rao. He's the president of Hotel Owners Association. Mr. Rao, thank you for joining us this evening. I was talking to Mr. Kohli. I want to get in your view as well. I want to understand if restaurants are guilty of the fact that the voluntary nature of the service charge was kept away from consumers for the longest time. I want to understand why that happened. Why did they not state it up front that a consumer does not necessarily have to pay service charge as put down in a bill? Is that part of the problem that needed to be solved, and that's why we have this guideline?
First of all, we welcome this decision, this guideline. The government has come up with a good guidelines that consumers should not suffer. This additional service charge is unwanted. Of course, this goes to our employees, but still, there is another option. Older option is that consumer voluntarily gives the tips, which can be divided from starting to help us. It can be pooled and divided in points once in a week or once in a month. Compulsory collecting service charge, that too particularly in the higher rated hotels, makes a big burden on the consumer. So on the point, we welcome and we request all the hoteliers to remove the service charge wherever they put on the bill. The actual rate and the GST only has to be taxed to the consumer. You see, the medium hotels who do not charge the service charge.
Yeah, but
the employees at the higher end hotels will get a heavy service charge. Monthly, they get nearly 10,000 or 15,000 as a service charge dividend. So the employees also wanted to go to that area only, and the medium hoteliers will suffer. The level playing is also will lose. It is really not required at this time. It's really a Western culture, actually, not the Indian culture, to put in a tax on tax. Already, our consumers are paying higher rate, and we have the option to increase the rate of every item. Mr. Piyush Goyal, our minister, also has told there is no bar on the race of our items. Then why another service charge on our customer? This is unwanted. And
clearly, so that's what the centre is saying, Mr. Rao. I want to understand how this is going to impact your employees, because you did say that there was a monthly takeaway. 10 to 15,000 rupees is, I think, what you mentioned. Now, they're going to be deprived of that. How does that change the nature of how you construct these remuneration packages and how you run the business?
When there is no service charge, our customers, if the service is good, they will themselves give the tips. All the tips will be collected here and put on the box, and the total collection will be divided to each and everyone who works in the hotel, from the service people to the captain, to the cook, and to the cleaner. So that is going to be there. Tips will be given voluntarily by the customer. Then our service people also will increase the quality of the service to the customer. Our basic requirement is customer should satisfy. If he satisfies, he will give a good tips. If there is a compulsory service charge on the bill, the quality of the service also may not go up, because they will get the service amount compulsorily, and so it is a disadvantage for the consumer. On my opinion, we should not have the service charge at all. This is only in the Western system.
Fair enough. That point you made. Also joining us right now is Rekha Agarwal, the Supreme Court advocate and a consumer activist herself. Good evening, Rekha. As far as this new guideline is concerned, several people, they may be asking why the government needed to intervene in a matter that involved billing practices of restaurants, and some people allege it was a dodgy practice. Do you agree with that the centre needed to step in, or could you have dealt with it differently under existing laws?
I think there was definitely a reason, valid reason for the government to step in right now and pass the guidelines. The reason being because earlier also the ministry had laid down these guidelines and they were treated as an advisory and nobody was following them. Even way back, I think it was the year 2017, if I'm not wrong, 2007 or 2017. I'm just mixing up the year right now, when the government had issued the guidelines. But the restaurant owners did not think that they were mandatory, and they treated them only as an advisory. So since there was no clarification, and the hotel industry was, doing their own, acting according to their own whims and fancies. Some restaurants were levying the service charge, some were not doing it. So there remained a gray area. And it was high time that now, and ultimately sufferer was the customer, because if the service charge is added, the customer would have no choice but to ultimately pay the service charge, whether the service was good or not, because he would not realize that it is not mandatory. And out of embarrassment, social embarrassment, most people who go to hotels or restaurants, they would end up paying the service charge. You don't want to create a issue over there, when you're out with your family or friends, that look, I was not happy with the service. Why are you levying this service charge on me? The food was not good, or the waiter did not serve me well, etc., or the ambience was not good. There could be so many issues, but ultimately the customer would just pay up that because it was added in the grand total. Once something is added in the grand total in the bill, it becomes almost like a mandate that you have to pay it. So I think that in those circumstances where the customers were realizing that they have no option, there was no option left now, but for the government to step in and give a clarification that yes, service charge should not be levied and it should be absolutely done away with. This practice is wrong. So I think
As
in the
per,
current scenario,
yes.
there was no other choice but
Okay,
to,
you're saying that there was no other
yes,
choice. Mr. Rao is
yes,
also in agreement that the center needed to do what it did. Tipping
yes.
should not be mandatory. It should be a choice that consumers have. But Rekha Agarwal, also as per the guidelines, no hotels or restaurants can add service charge automatically or by default in the bill, which also means that you cannot call it something else and levy it regardless. So how comprehensive do you think the guideline is now? Because you said it was already there, but it wasn't being followed. Now, how are
Yes.
they ensuring compliance over here? Is it as watertight as it needs to be, in your opinion, so that it cannot be interpreted differently and that consumers continue making the choice over here?
I think that now there is no scope for any doubt left. The government has made it very clear that no, no, no means no. It's like a zero tolerance policy that the center has made very clear now. And this will be applicable all over the country. It is not state-wise. So once the center has stepped in and given the order, rather like a command that no means no, nobody is going to levy the service charge. So I think that after this, there will be no scope left for any customer to get conned into paying any extra money on account of tipping or on account of a service charge, or you may call it whatever you may feel like. But ultimately, if you lift the veil and you feel that it is nothing but extracting money from the customer's pocket, that is what the government has stepped in and now come to the help of the customers. A customer wants value for money, and the moment the customer pays the amount for a particular food item, which is listed for example, 100 rupees is written for a particular cup of tea in a restaurant, he has to pay 100 rupees and no more. You cannot levy more charges on the account that, okay, 100 plus 100, another 10 rupees, 10% for service charge. If he's happy, if he voluntarily wants to tip the waiter for if the tea was good or if the service got good, that is his choice. But with the current in the current order passed by the center, this will be totally discretionary for the customer to whether to pay or not to pay, and there will be no discretion left on the restaurant or the hotel to add it in the bill and then say that, look, we are not forcing you to pay it. It's a separate, we're putting it under separate head.
Right.
So that fine print which you add at the bottom of the bill and then add it in the grand total, that thing has been done away with. So it's absolutely crystal clear. The customer is the king. The hotel industry cannot survive without the customer. And so it is the customer's choice. If he's happy, he will pay. If he's not happy, he will not pay any tip. So I think that puts an end to any gray area in the mind of the hotel industry.
Right. So now the gray area has become black, and now we can see clearly because the question marks, the non-standardization as far as service charges in restaurants, certain kinds of restaurants only used to levy it, some didn't. So we are likely to see a scenario where there is no question left. And if there is any kind of problem over here, then it can be reported. Several mechanisms have been mentioned as well in terms of how the complaints can be made and how it can be resolved, any kinds of complaints that are raised. So yes, there is a certain amount of clarity, and a news item that we had brought up earlier. Now we are getting a confirmation on it with this latest move by the center. Rekha Agarwal and Mr. Rao, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this tonight, and we'll continue our focus on several other issues that involve consumers on India Development Debate. Time for a very quick breather. We'll be right back.